Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello and welcome, everybody. I am George Armistead, back with another episode of Life List. I am today with Mollee Brown. How are you doing, Mollee?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Got winter weather and I'm cozied up inside, so watching feeders today. But yeah, how have you been?
Good, yes. Winter finally kind of really arrived here, and we got a fresh coating of snow just in time for a few birds to arrive. We had the Philadelphia Midwinter Burn Census, which actually missed because I was moving that day, but I know that a good whack of birds has turned up as a result of that storm. And yeah, I've been watching the feeders as well. Watched a Cooper's hawk eviscerate a downy woodpecker this morning. That was pretty cool. Yeah,
it's christening your new backyard then.
Exactly. Yeah. Some
cool.
some good new yard birds coming up. So pretty stoked about that. So yeah. And I understand you are soon off to the great state of New Mexico.
Yeah, I'm heading out in just a few days for a quick trip in the Albuquerque area. I'm going with a few folks who are on the planning team for the Frontiers in Ornithology Symposium. So that's an event that we first held in 2019, and it's for youth who were basically interested in careers or futures in ornithology. So we bring ornithologists and speakers and that kind of thing together and do a one-day symposium and then another day of workshops and hands-on things. So I'm super excited. We're planning for 2023. Just pandemic has pushed this back, a couple years, as a lot of things have been. Mm-hmm. But we're going out and planning and also getting some birding in, and I can't wait.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's such a great area and such a great event that you guys have worked on, done a few of them now. And pretty great event if you're a young birder or know a young birder who is thinking about a career in ornithology, and research and conservation are the two main areas, right?
Yeah. This event is just fun. I mean, as anybody who's interested in this knows, especially youth, there aren't a ton of opportunities to get people together about this kind of thing. So when we did the first full event, it was in Delaware in 2019. And, we planned it for a year and we put a lot of work into it. But then when it's the first of its kind, you just kind of see who's going to show up and see what happens. And it sold out before. And it was so cool to actually see it happen and come together, and so many people who were interested in it. And we had awesome speakers. You being one of them, you were a panelist, weren't you? And
yeah, thanks. That was such a cool event. It really was.
It was it's fun. Yeah. It's great. So if you are a young person or know a young person who's interested in it, you'll have to keep an eye on what we have planned for the next year, because it's a lot of fun and a very unique thing to get to do.
Yeah, and in New Mexico, it'll be really, really fascinating. A cool cast of characters involved there for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. Frontiers in Ornithology 2023.
Yeah. By the time we release this will already have happened, but you've got a new trip coming up too for Hillstar, right?
Yes. Yeah. I've got Pelagic on Saturday, and then another Pelagic soon after that. And I think a Columbia tour as well coming up that I'm super excited about in the Coffee Triangle area. So,
that's very exciting.
Yeah, nice part of Columbia. Lots of hummingbirds and ant pittas, some great endemic birds, and just kind of a relaxed atmosphere with, good food, nice birding at really, really cool mid-high elevation spots. So it's not too hot. It's actually going to be pretty chilly up there. So yeah, a couple things going on. But yeah, the Pelagic this weekend will be really nice. Looks like we're going to have decent weather. So of course that's always the first thing.
Yeah.
But we sold out today. So that was nice. Good news.
Yeah. Congrats. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get you on the next one.
Definitely.
Yeah. Nice. Well, today, Mollee Brown, we are talking about a trip that we concluded just a few short weeks ago. Really, what most folks would not hesitate to call the trip of a lifetime. I mean, going to what is widely known as the Pearl of Africa in East Africa, Uganda, we had a great group of folks
Yeah.
that we were traveling with, and great gang of people, ushering us around and showing us what all the tourist sites for birders. We got a great sense of the lay of the land there. We got to engage with the Ugandans a lot, and we got to see some amazing wildlife, some beautiful locations. It really was a heck of a trip. I know you and I are both eager to get back. Alvaro as well is got a trip. I think our friend Peter Burke, who we'll hear from a little bit later, is going to represent Alvaro over there. And but man, what a great group we got to travel with, huh?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That was so much fun. And our group text hasn't died out yet from the trip too. So I think that's a good indication of how much fun it was. But we were all so happy, which how could you not be? But the whole trip we were just laughing and just constant talking and always had something to do with each other, and it was so much fun. Really, really fun group of friends to be with.
Yeah, it really was. It was fun to be with, especially after the last, months, year plus, to get someplace as exciting as this, and with such a group of great folks. Many of whom were friends, but some of whom I think everybody got some life birders on the trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was really a nice mix, and yeah, it was we're very fortunate to be able, in the business we're in, to be able to do stuff like this, um, because like Alvaro and you, I think, have both said in the past, birding is certainly about the birds and the wildlife, but it's also about the birders a lot. And man, did we get to spend some time with some great birders on this trip.
Yeah. It was great. And of course that's always great, but like you said, it's not the easiest time to be traveling now. And there's a lot of us have not been out much over the past couple years, and when you're apprehensive and there are other things outside of the group's control, when you have a group that is keeping each other calm and positive and everything, and of course everything went fine. But yeah, that made it was a great time to be with such an amazing group of people.
Yeah, they're just to give folks a quick rundown. Myself and Mollee and your Jimmy was there, and James, incredible photographer. Peter Burke from Alvaro's Adventures, and Catherine Hamilton from Zeiss. Dominic Cousins, the well-known author from the UK. Forget how many books he's published, but it's a whole bunch. Our friends Hannah and Eric, who from Hannah and Eric Go Birding podcast. Doug Gotchfeld from Field Guides. Ted Floyd from Birding. I think I've got almost everybody that came in, if not everybody, and our fearless leader, Herbert Biarunga, as well. Pretty amazing cast.
Yeah. Yeah, that really is quite a list. And that's not to mention all of the other guides and local birders that we got to meet, which were dozens and dozens by the time the trip was over, because we got to end it with the African Birding Expo and attending that, and just meeting tons of birders from all over Uganda, everywhere we went. So there were just lots of really incredible people that we were around the entire time.
Yeah. And we had a series of questions we were going to go through here. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Mollee, was about the people and the birders. What would you say was your favorite personal experience, in terms of meeting people in Uganda? Um, you know, we had so many great opportunities to meet folks, as we've discussed. Was there one moment that stood out for you, or a couple moments, or was it all a big wash of birders and birdering?
I'm trying to think through, like what we did on what day now, and it's already really blended together.
A
But
blur, indeed.
yeah, Yeah. So one thing that was really cool through just, meeting people here and there, and also through the birding co-op, and which has a really big online community, I've got to virtually meet a lot of the folks that I then met in person in Uganda too. So that was all really cool. And I think we're all kind of getting more of these experiences where you have someone you have a friendship with, but it's entirely virtual. And then you actually go to meet them and you're like, oh, whoa, you're really tall. I didn't know that on Zoom or something. But I don't know. That's a very weird but really cool experience where you're meeting someone in person for the first time, but they really are a good friend already. So I had a few of those throughout the trip, and that was cool. But a single moment or outing that really stands out to me and help me remember, was this the day that we were chimp tracking, and then in the afternoon we met some of the guides that were in training?
Yes. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was one that yeah, that was that moment I think stuck out to me. I mean, it certainly stuck out to me as well. But yeah, we met about 9 other guides in training there. In
Sounds about right. Yeah.
I think it was I always forget I get confused. The town I think is Fort Portal. Uh, and I always want to call it Port Fortal. But I think it's Fort Portal. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even remember the name. But yeah, so
Yeah.
this guide training program that has a heavy focus on women, but a lot of young professionals who are interested in nature guiding. They have these sites that are set up all around Uganda. So some of these were people who were local, some were from the capital or the city that was, I don't know how far away, several hours
Yeah.
drive.
Good
So
ways away.
yeah. But their training, they have lodging and accommodation, and all of that is included. So they're all at this site, and we just kind of walked their patch with them and split up into groups and spent an afternoon checking out the birding, which was actually really good. It should have been the slower time of day, but we had a lot of activity, and just kind of going through some like agricultural fields and a little wetland area where we had flufftails calling and that kind of thing.
Yes. You guys got to
So
see fluff tails call.
we did. Yeah,
It's a
we had
source of some frustration to some of us. Yes.
I know that was one of we weren't our group wasn't split up very much. For the most part we were all in the same spot at the same time, but that was one spot where we were split up. And
Yeah.
it was one of those good quick looks. It's a fast moving bird, and it's
Yeah.
not wanting to come out and, sit and just, be on a good display in the open, but it ran right in front of us, and you
That's
all did
awesome.
not get to experience that.
No, we surely did not. We had some great experience with some barbets, which was neat,
Mm,
and yeah, the guides there were super.
mhm,
You could see there was everyone. Was it was a real it really ran the spectrum of folks. Some guides that were really pretty new to it, and others that had been there a while and built up a lot of expertise. But I would say, they were uniform in their
mhm.
enthusiasm. So often in the guiding business, as we know, that you have to have the personality to. You have to be a little bit of an extrovert. I think, like you and I, Molly, I know are both somewhat of. I think of myself as like an extroverted introvert. Like,
Yeah,
my
I
wife
say the same
sometimes
thing.
like, yeah, my wife sometimes she's like, I really forget that you're actually kind of an introvert, and she'll invite people over, and I get all cranky, but you have to have a little bit of that, and these guys, they all did. These young men and women, they were all, they were so enthusiastic and smart and quick and
Yeah,
welcoming. That
yeah.
was really a cool experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You could really see what the birding culture is like in Uganda. Like, there's just so much enthusiasm and passion, and it feels so active. Like, everybody's just so actively wanting to jump in and be involved, and is excited about every bird they see. We saw that time and time again. Even like,
Yeah.
our guides for the chimp tracking who were helping us find the chimps were very knowledgeable bird guides too. And that probably
Yes.
just goes to show what it's like to have a countrywide training program or opportunities for people to learn about birding and guiding. But that was really cool.
That was something that definitely stuck out on this trip, even compared to a lot of places that I think any of us had been. As you talk about going birding someplace where the government has invested in wildlife tourism, and you can see very concretely uh, the positive impact you have on these folks' lives by being there, and how there's really a culture built around wildlife tourism there. It's just it makes you long for the days of more wildlife tourism in the area, because you could, by the time we were there, you could tell it'd been pretty sparse. They hadn't seen a lot of
Mm-hmm.
groups in a long time, and they were, I think, especially glad to see a group like us. But yeah, it's nice to be someplace where you can really see the positive impacts that wildlife and birding tourism can have on
Yeah.
folks' lives, really distinctly.
Yeah.
It's
Not
pretty
even
neat.
not just in the guides, but like the hotels or the lodges that we were at. I I kind of miss the feeling of like, oh, yep, these are the birders. We'll have your food ready early for in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing. And being with our driver, Alex, who is obviously quite experienced with driving a bus full of birders around the country
Yeah,
and the whole, hold on, back up a little bit farther. We can't see
yeah,
it and
yeah.
all of that.
3 more feet. Oh, 1 foot forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's so much fun when like you're going to all these different sites because this was a highlights tour. Like we were moving around a lot.
yeah. We did
Um
a lot of travel. Yeah,
yeah. But then you have that familiarity everywhere you go. Just it was a birding trip. It wasn't a bunch of birders in a I don't know, out of place in another park where there were all these other things going. It was just everybody around got birding and
yeah,
I've missed that.
yeah. Yeah, and to give folks a little bit of a kind of quick summary of, kind of what we did, and maybe a little bit of scope. Uganda is about the size of Oregon, the state of Oregon, or Great Britain. It's roughly the same size, but it's got over 1,000 bird species. And there's a lot of people there too. There's, the size of Oregon, but I think it's 44 million people in the country, and it's actually growing. So there's some issue with habitat, and there's some concerns regarding habitat and in human encroachment, but there's a great national park network as well, and a lot of birds and wildlife in those. English is actually the official language there, which is helps things in some ways. And yeah, it's we flew into Entebbe, which is where the main international airport is. Like the capital is Kampala, which is only about an hour or so north of there. That's about 1.5 million people. Entebbe, I think, is only around 100,000 or something. It's a pretty small town. It
Mhm.
was well known from the 1979 hostage crisis there, which I didn't actually know a whole lot about that before going, but I did a little research, and it's a lot of folks remember Idi Amin in the Last King of Scotland movie that came out a few years ago. Details that those were some dark times in Uganda, but for the last going on 30, 40 years now, it's been pretty stable there, and in a real hub for tourism. It's widely known as the Pearl of Africa, and yeah. Now, Molly, we flew in. We flew into Entebbe. We pretty much now you did a little pre-trip, and I'd like to ask you about that in a second. But we
Mhm.
pretty much did what a lot of folks do: is we head southwest and hit the Mabamba Swamp, which is a place for a rather iconic bird, which we'll talk about shortly, I'm sure. And then we headed all the way to the southwest corner to the windy impenetrable forest, which is the site for mountain gorillas and a great birding area as well. Along the way, we hit Lake Mburo, then we headed north and hit a few areas along the Albertine Rift in the Rwenzori Mountains, which is where there's a lot of endemic birds. That's right on the border with the DRC, with Congo. And there's a whole bunch of birds along the Albertine endemic rift that they're endemic to that zone, and so this is the place to go look for them. A lot of them are quite difficult to find, so you need a lot of time. We didn't get a ton of those on this trip just because you need to dedicate some time to have a chance to see them all. And then we headed on up, eventually finishing up at the famous Murchison Falls before heading back to Kampala, where we then did enjoy the African Birding Expo, where we got to meet with a bunch of other birders. So it was a whirlwind trip. We covered a lot of miles, but man, did we see a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we did. Everywhere we went, I mean, the habitats, which, okay, so I'll jump ahead to one of the questions that was what surprised you the most about Uganda, and the diversity of habitat that we were experiencing is easily my answer. And that, I mean, the diversity of the birds too. And I knew what the expected number of birds that we were going to see was, but I mean, every site was just totally different habitats, different types of birding, and just such a huge range of birds. It
Yeah,
was hard to imagine before actually being there. I mean, this is by far the biggest trip list I've ever had. And
yeah,
yeah, it was amazing.
impressive long list of birds. And yeah, I think one of the things that's sort of surprised me, um, I'd kind of seen this before, but it'd been a while, I guess, and I just kind of was blown away. Where we go to our hotel right in Entebbe, and just like on the wires and bushes and trees, there's not a whole lot of vegetation right there, but there's
Mm-hmm.
just birds all around. Those
Mm-hmm.
double-toothed barbets and Ross's turacos, and just all sorts of stuff. Just hopping around, singing in close. Everything seemed very confiding, and it was amazing what you could just see right at the hotel, right by the airport. Some wonderful photo opportunities of some serious eye candy birds. That was definitely one of
Yeah.
the things that really stood out, kind of surprised me.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally remember thinking when we were just waiting on the bus to leave that first morning before we were leaving Entebbe, and we had, I don't know, 35 species or something as we were getting into the bus. And now it's funny to think back on that. I was totally amazed, but that was such a drop in the bucket compared to what we had in store for the entire rest of the trip.
It was a lot every day. It was like feast your eyes, and we got lucky too. I mean, part of the reason people traveled when we did is it's one of the two kind of sections of the year where it's not so rainy. But we had really good weather for the most part, and
Yeah, we did.
I also was surprised somewhat by just how generally pleasant it was. Like, even up in the mountains there, we didn't really get too chilly. It was just kind of generally really pleasant weather. And I guess
Yeah.
we're kind of mid elevations a lot of the time, and that's why. But
Yeah, it was just great. I'm trying to remember. I mean, we barely had rain, didn't we? I did come in a day and a half earlier, and
yeah,
I had rain the first part.
yeah. So, do you want to detail for folks a little bit what your arrival was like, and what you did those first couple days?
Sure, yeah. So we were just, able to leave a little earlier. We actually left maybe the day before Thanksgiving. So we could go. A couple other folks, Peter and Don, were also able to go. And one, I was I was concerned about getting used to the time zone over there. Wasn't really sure how much sleep we would be getting on the tour, and I wanted to give myself time to adjust to that because I'm a person that needs a lot of sleep, so I wanted to make sure that I was getting the most out of it. And then also just because it was, a long trip and there was room for something to go wrong, and we thought, well, if we can go a little early, then if a flight gets delayed or whatever and we have something bump us back, we're okay. So we did, and we spent the first 2 nights of our trip just on the other side of Kampala. So it was maybe a 2-hour drive or so in Mabira Forest, and it was awesome. Just that rainforest feel, and we were at a lodge that was beautiful, and super birdy, and lots of different several different species of monkeys around and that kind of thing. My best hornbill shots were from there, from our room, as we were just sitting on the porch. So it was one of those things where it was just a nice lodge to relax, and we drove a couple kilometers and walked some nice roads, and there were just a few of us, and we could get on some smaller paths and just do some good quality forest birding and kind of get our bearings on things. And that was about it. And then we came back and met with the group, and it was completely lovely.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing I remember is when we arrived, I think our flight arrived in the morning and it was torrential, pouring rain. And I was like, oh man, this is, this is a lot of rain. Like, I expected that we'd run into some rain, but this is a lot of rain. But I think it went 4 or 5 hours or more. I don't know. We arrived and I promptly fell asleep. But I woke up kind of midday and it was nice out. And that was when we started to see some of the stuff around the hotel, and
Yeah.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm
Nice,
not
nice
remembering.
place.
Did we have any other big rainstorms?
That's the thing. I don't remember there was a little bit of rain at Lake and Burrow. Remember that
Oh, that's
first
right.
morning there,
Yep.
but that was
Yep.
about it. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
was
It
real
didn't
nice.
interrupt our birding. Yeah.
No, yeah, we just kept going and saw. That was one of our better mornings, actually, one of our better days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, we have something new for this episode with a few of our friends from the trip sharing their memories too. So first up are Hannah and Eric of Hannah and Eric Go Birding, and in a little bit you'll also hear from Peter Burke, who's part of Alvaro's team at Alvaro's Adventures. Enjoy!
So Hannah, what surprised you most about Uganda?
So the thing that I really think about is the tourism aspect of Uganda. So when, growing up in the US, thinking about Africa and where I'd want to go, I've heard of places like Morocco and South Africa and Kenya. Those are really places that I've heard about a lot. And Uganda just wasn't on the list.
Yeah.
And it was incredible to me when we went there and we actually saw, places in Uganda that they are open to tourism and they are really welcoming to tourism and they want it there. We went to one town, Fort Portal, just outside of Kabale National Park or, around it.
Yeah, the forest where we went to go see the chimpanzees.
Yeah, and there were signs on the sides of the road, that were like the I don't know, the light pole flags that said
like almost like the feather flags, like the things that you put up for like events and stuff.
Yeah, it said Fort Portal welcomes tourism. And it was, it was out there. It was far away from the airport. Like, I wouldn't be able to get there on my own. But to see these, communities that are welcoming to tourists and want them there was just really exciting to me. And just makes me want to be a part of it. And, with the going to the Ride for a Woman hotel and just how the tourism there has impacted the Bawindi community to help fund conservation and help protection of these places was just something that I will, always remember.
Well, I feel like not to like tag too heavily onto your surprising thing about Uganda.
Don't take my thing.
But just that Americans haven't been marketed to from Uganda. Like going there, like it's obvious, like they are a tourist industry. Like the Uganda has a lot to offer. They want tourists. They want, especially naturalist tourists coming down and looking at stuff.
And they really want to share what they have with people.
Well,
it's not so much like they want to bleed us dry of all our money,
Exactly.
It's like they were so excited to show us gorillas and show us chimpanzees and all the cool things that they have to offer.
Yeah, and once you get there, it's obvious that, this is a tourist market. This is where you come for wildlife tourism. But as an American, we don't get marketed Uganda, like for whatever reason it hasn't made it to the States as a place to go, but,
other than like what Herbert does.
Other than what Herbert does, but it's so limited so far, but it's like it's there. They're ready for tourists. They want people to come down, and it was super obvious once we were there, but it was definitely surprising.
And what about you? What did you find was the most surprising thing about Uganda?
Yeah, so the tourism was definitely surprising.
Stop stealing my thing.
I'm not going to steal your thing. So the other thing, the thing that's even more surprising to me was the density of people. So Uganda is the same size as Oregon. So same size as the place we live, but you could find people.
There was about a population that was like 8 times the size of Oregon, I think.
There was people
live in Uganda.
Everywhere we went, there was people. So you would drive 15 minutes and you'd find another village. You drive another 15 minutes, find another village. Like they were, and you can't drive very fast. They're not very far from each other. Each of these villages. But in Oregon, you get on the highway, you get on 84, you get on 26, you drive 2 hours between cities, and you'll drive through ranch land where there's nothing. For a full hour of nothing at 65 miles an hour, and you won't see another person as far as you can see. And you may not see other people in Uganda when you're driving here, but you'll see the villages. They'll be out busy working the plantains, working the millet, doing whatever they need to do to make a living. But you'll pass through the villages. You'll pass through human infrastructure as you're going, just because the density is so much higher. But yet it's not developed the same way that like the Western world, a lot of our places are developed, where you've got like just pavement everywhere and giant cities where it's just hardcore development. It's just like they're living out in villages that are like basically one with nature, just out there. But it's everywhere you go, there's people. You're gonna find people. You drive down these random roads, you think like 2 hours down this random road and think you're just in the middle of nowhere, and there's a village, and then you'll find a gas station.
I know, when we were driving through Lake Mburo in the evening, when we were doing the night hike, or the night drive.
The night drive, yeah.
And we were just driving along, we had just seen a leopard, and then some dude like comes riding through in a motorbike.
Yeah.
And it's like, where did that guy go, and where is he going?
Yeah, he's probably only driving a couple kilometers, and then he's going to be home. And it's like, we just saw a leopard. We just had an experience with...
And it was like pitch black out.
It's just completely black, yeah. We had this experience with a bunch of giraffes, like right there, and a
Is that guy going to be okay?
And he's just driving along on his motorbike, and he's probably 1 kilometer from his house, and he's just right about to get to his house. So it's just, there's people... The density of people is so much higher than what I'm used to here in the States. Because here in the States, like, we may think that we're super populated and super, like, dense, but we're only dense in the cities. We have these huge expanses of just nothing, which is good, because we have big prairies, and we have forests, and we have stuff like that, which is great to have the nature doing its thing. But in Uganda, like, there's people living in those places, like out in the forest and out in the prairies and out in the savannah.
Well, was there anything else that surprised you about the trip, or that you weren't expecting?
So much stuff, I guess. I guess so much emphasis is put on the mountain gorillas by so many people, which are amazing, right? Like, genuinely. But I think I was surprised how much I enjoyed the chimp experience.
Yes. I completely agree.
Yeah, like the sounds. Like, do you remember as we were approaching, I mean, like, we're getting close, and the sounds that they make, I'm like, should we be doing this? Like, this, it sounds like, the gates of hell have opened up, and you're walking into some kind of mess. And then, because they make a hell of a racket, and they're I mean, the sound was intimidating leading up to them. But then when we got there, and they're, they kind of alternate between sitting around, chilling, resting, maybe eating a little bit, grazing. And then the next thing you know, they're on the move, and they're galloping, and they're moving like, it's incredible how fast they move. They move like a really fast dog, just like galloping through the forest floor. And then the next thing you know, they're running through, and they're smacking their hands on the tree trunks, and they have these huge hands, and they're super strong. So they make all these sounds, and I remember the guides being like, setting us up before we set out to see them. And they were like, kind of very matter of factly, they're like, if the chimp throws something at you or smacks you, don't worry too much. I was like, okay, all right. Like, it's just, I don't know. Never experienced anything quite like that. It really shocked me. I was so focused, I think, on the gorillas that I didn't realize what a cool experience the chimpanzees were going to be.
Yeah, I was the exact same way. I didn't have nearly the anticipation or anything with the chimps that I did for the gorillas. But you go for the gorilla tracking. First off, they're in family groups. It's roughly 10 to 12 or so. There's some variation. And they're fairly quiet, slow moving, just kind of grazing throughout their day. And you go out, and there are trackers. They go out and look for these groups before us, actually. And then we catch up to the trackers when we go out to look for the gorillas. But yeah, you're just kind of peeking into this little peaceful, quiet group of gorillas going about their day. And then for the chimps, well, first off, I'll say when we got caught up to the chimps and we went, I like looked one in the eye that was just sitting there. That was the moment that physically took my breath away. So that totally stands out to me from the trip too. But yeah, so the chimp groups are sort of loose and spread out throughout the forest. And I'm trying to remember, is it sort of 50 to 100? They're not. It's
I
not
forget,
as
it was a
easy to
lot
track.
more. Yeah, I mean, it was dozens. Yeah.
They have this like community. I'm not using the right words now. And they break off into these little subgroups that are smaller. But yeah, so you come up and you're going through this thick forest, and then all of a sudden you see some movement, and there are maybe 3 or 4 chimps in front of you. And you do get fairly close to them. We're wearing masks and everything, but we're 10 meters away or so. But then, yeah, when they start making noise, you realize they're everywhere around you. Like the forest, it's not just you're seeing this happen in front of you. You're seeing 4 or 5 of them in front of you, and you hear 50 others calling around you. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it really was a different kind of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, you feel like you're just in this entire, I want to say civilization. They're obviously so organized and communicating so well. They know exactly what's going on, and then you realize how surrounded you are. I think that's
very
intense.
That's why, it's like it's almost a little unsettling because, like you say, you look in their eye, and it's it's less than 2% difference genetically. We're almost looking at ourselves, and it's just a very, very different experience.
Yeah. The gorillas were just sort of uninterested. They were just going about their day. And we weren't doing anything. The chimps weren't reacting to us. They were certainly in their own world. But yeah, like you said, there was just a lot more, I'm trying to think of the word. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't just not passive.
It was kind of raw. It was emotional and like a little hysterical at times, and then super placid and calm, and like those things stacked up pretty quickly against each other.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
It was just it was surprising. It really was.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite day in Uganda, I think, had to be the first full day that we were in the country. We had got in really late the night before, and I always love that part of traveling when you wake up after just arriving and you realize, hey, I am in somewhere new. This is going to be so exciting. And the whole day was just full of surprises and that anticipation of being somewhere different, seeing new things, meeting new people. And so my wife, Dawn, who was with us, that was another huge part, was just watching Dawn's reaction to all these new things. We had waited so long to travel. And here it was, finally able to get out and be in a new place, a new continent. Everything was just such novelty that that excitement all day long of watching new things come on board and people's reactions to them. So much fun. I had been in the old world tropics before, but it had been decades, actually. I'd spent some time in Papua New Guinea back in 1992 at a research station for a few months, and getting, sort of back into that experience of how quiet the tropical forests of the old world tropics can be. It just instantly came sort of all flooding back, and just looking at the vegetation and listening to the sounds, it all had a very familiar sense to me that I found really exciting and just satisfying. I'd wanted to get back, and here I was finally. And then the birding that morning, right off the bat, we were seeing things. Our local guides, Davis and Harmon, were more than I had hoped for. They were, they knew all the sounds. They knew where to look for things. They knew the special things that the forest had that, we would want to see. So very quickly they were showing us purple-throated cuckoo shrike and Jameson's waterlie and red-tailed bristlebill. It was very quick in being impressive. So we got back to some excellent accommodations. There was a lodge right in the forest that we stayed at with red-tailed monkeys and lots of neat sounds on the forest all around us. And then after wonderful meal and very comfortable accommodations, settling in, realizing we were going to be back out there again the next day. The day capped off with these tree hyraxes, this little mammal that's related to elephants, making these just god-awful noises, screams almost, in the night, in the darkness, just outside the cabin. That was pretty cool. Cool way to finish that day off. So yeah, day one. You can't beat day one.
Would you say that was your favorite day in Uganda, Mollee?
No. Actually, no. One was actually the day after we saw gorillas, which was my favorite birding day for sure.
That was
when
my
we were
favorite
just
day
kind
as
of
well.
really, yeah. So just walking the road there at Wendy, and the birding was just phenomenal. Some of my favorite birds from the trip were in that. And we were just one of those things where we're just kind of walking the park road, and it's morning and we're at a slow pace, and we're kind of, just checking out here and there. That was great.
Yeah, I love that day as well, in part because remember we even stumbled upon another little troop of gorillas that day.
Yeah.
Just by chance, we'd done the big hike, and the big hike was, it was no joke. I was a little hobbled coming down that trail. I got a trick knee that can act up on me, and it sure did that day. So just coming down the hill was something else. And I also like the big track. I was telling my friends, the gorilla. We had great guides that really do prepare you and are tremendous help. And just before we got there, everyone had hiking sticks, walking sticks to get up the hill. And they said, okay, the gorillas are just up the hill here. We'll take your walking sticks, your hiking sticks, because the gorillas don't like those. And if you go walking up there with those, could be trouble. So they took those, and they said, and by the way, if the silverback charges you, just, lower your head, don't run away, and just, be passive. And everyone's like, okay, all right, that sounds a little scary, but sure. And then, we get up there, and we're looking at this huge silverback. I don't know how heavy he was. It's like, I don't know, 500 pounds or something. And, he's grazing away, and he kind of made some sounds and everything. And then he kind of does a bluff charge, and I start running away. And like all the preparation, they're like, don't run away. And I'm like, they're like, George, don't run away. And I'm like, I hear what you're saying. My body doesn't care. It's like, so I think Doug and Ted grabbed a hold of me and sat me down. And I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Don't run away. Yeah. Gotcha. And then, and he didn't hardly take a couple steps towards us really, but he did kind of lunge, and it was enough that, my flea instinct had set in, and it was not really not one of my prouder moments. But that day was tremendous and cool, and what I think everybody hoped it would be. But I'm with you. The next day, we had so many birds, and just before we set out that day, Herbert said to me, this was the site voted by the African Bird Club as the number one birding location in Africa. And I was like,
oh,
wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Huh. And I was like, wow, that's I knew it was supposed to be a good spot and all. And then, we start walking, and we're just picking up birds. We didn't even go very far. It was just so much stuff.
Yeah.
Close. Really a heck of a day.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, we were riding off of the high. And I think from the gorillas too, there's just so much anticipation, and I mean, years worth for some of us. And it was just, that was as amazing as I think it lived up to everyone's expectations. So yeah, you're riding off of that. We were at an incredible lodge that was just amazing. It was called Ride for a Woman. And I think Hannah and Eric actually interviewed a few people from here. So this should be well covered by our group. But it was a lodge where it started as a group that just rented out bicycles for tourists to use in Wendy. And it just developed and built this whole thing where they do training for women, and they run this lodge, and they provide housing and professional opportunities and all these other things. They also they performed music for us and local music, which was how we actually started our Gorilla Day.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're coming off of all that, and we're just down the road birding too. And that day, is that the day we had the traditional Ugandan meal? I think that was that night, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. Man, that was the most I ate that whole trip.
Yeah.
I was like a beached whale. They had to roll me out of dinner that night.
Yeah, that was amazing. They just prepared a full feast for us. I don't know if there were 15 different dishes.
It was a lot.
And then we went through the buffet. I think we all ate from everything.
Yeah, it went back for seconds. It was like a huge heaping plate of food, and then went back for seconds. That peanut sauce, that stuff was delicious.
Yep. Yeah, I have thought about that a lot since then, and I haven't looked up. I know that we have a different type of peanut here in North America, but similar. I haven't looked up this sauce, but it was purple. It was like a purple kind of hummusy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The food in general, I think was, I didn't really know what to expect, but it was remarkably good throughout. And there was a lot of great avocado dishes, including just like that. Remember, they give us like a half an avocado and they dress it up like so decadent. And, and yeah, just a bunch of great food. I think tilapia is actually one of the biggest exports. Fish is one of the biggest exports in Uganda. Coffee is their biggest. And fish, I think, is the second biggest. Tea is another big one. We saw a lot of tea plantations. Bananas are big. And you see people selling tilapia all along the sides of the road. And it's just is really, really good stuff. You see the bananas everywhere too. And Mollee, we certainly got to sample some of their Ugandan gin, as they call it, or waraji, which is made
we had
from
healthy
the bananas.
Sample there. Yeah.
Yeah, almost healthy daily sample of
yes.
of waraji. The meals were well enjoyed with lots of good waraji. I think everybody would love to get a hold of some of that around here. It seemed to go well with the climate as well.
It did, yeah.
So, Eric, if you could spend a whole week at any location in Uganda, where would it be and why?
And why? So, I have given this question a lot of thought, especially after coming back. I think we went to a lot of really good places, but Lake Mburo was like what I think of as like looking back at like 1920s and 1930s like BBC like shows. Like that's where you go in Africa. Like you're in a tented camp.
Yeah.
You're up on a platform, you're in this giant canvas tent, and you're just overlooking like a slightly thinly forested savanna with just like hippos and elephants and zebras and antelopes and everything you could want. We went on a boat ride. I could go on a boat ride probably 3 or 4 times and have a great time. The hippos, the
water buffaloes,
the Finfoot.
Oh yeah, the Finfoot.
All sorts of just like spectacular, like not just bird wildlife, but like every bit of wildlife all around Lake Mburo. And then the whole giraffe situation in the evening we had that one night.
Yeah, that was incredible. And, just staying in those tents was so cool. I mean, it was the first place we've ever stayed in a location like that. And in the middle of the night when the wind kicked up and I thought there were monkeys outside our tent, it was a little scary. But then it was also like, oh man, I feel like I'm really out in nature, experiencing it when I figured out it was the wind, obviously.
Well, so I slept through the wind.
Yeah.
I missed the wind monkey situation, but the warthogs snorting right behind our heads.
I'm pretty sure that was still you.
It might have been me. I don't know, but it woke me up, so I don't know. Who knows? But they're like probably 10 feet away from us. Just the warthogs that were at the underneath our platform, just kind of like snorting along, doing their thing. That woke me up. So that was exciting.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And you have a 2x4 for the platform that the tent's sitting on, and quarter 16-inch, however thick the canvas material is, separating you from a warthog. So it was super cool. I mean, you're right out there in nature.
Yeah,
that was nice. So where would you want to spend a whole week?
See, I would want to spend a whole week in Queen Elizabeth National Park.
Ah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so that was like the grass savanna that I picture when I picture Africa. Mm-hmm. When we got to the lodge that we stayed at, and we saw elephants 5 miles away, from the scopes, and I was like, this is the best view I'm ever gonna get of an elephant, and just becoming okay with that. But looking at the grassland and everything in front of us was just absolutely stunning. Of course, we saw elephants much closer when we were at that park. Mm-hmm. And we just had some incredible elephant encounters. I mean, just driving down the road, and they would be on the side of the road, and I could just see these animals, I could see details on them. Was incredible. And then the boat ride that we'd done from there, where we saw the terns and we saw those gorgeous gray-headed gulls and water buffaloes in the water.
Those gray-headed gulls were pretty spectacular.
They're beautiful. All the pied kingfishers, that to me was like the best place that we went, and I would definitely love to explore it even more.
Did you bring anything home? We brought Waraji home. It's gone. It's long gone.
I brought home a lot of coffee.
Did you?
Brought home a lot of coffee. I meant to bring home Waraji, and I kind of my flight got moved up at the end, and I had sort of a big shop planned at the end.
Oh, right.
We that was another thing, is Omicron kind of blossomed at the onset of this trip. Like, we got there. I think you'd have been there a couple of days, or
but I think it was maybe the day after I got there.
Yeah, I'd never even heard of Omicron, and we got there and learned that it now existed. And no one, I guess, had ever heard of it. We were like, boy, that's a pretty metal name for a virus variant.
Yeah,
played a little bit of havoc for us, but
yeah, it did. Yeah, like I said, those were things that were totally out of our control, but they were present during the trip, which just having an amazing group of people really helped with pushing those worries aside and enjoying that. Yeah. But yeah, did you eat any Rolexes?
I didn't have those as much as you guys did. But those like, I had those one day. I think it was like towards the end of the trip. I kept hearing about you guys ordering Rolex, and I was like, what are they even doing? Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I'm going to just order one and find out what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, we ate those once or twice when we were up in Mabira before the actual trip started too. So yeah, it's just rolled eggs, but they call it a Rolex, which was in the chapati, like a pita bread or chapati that kind of bread. Thing. Yeah. So we had our lunch choices every day, and I started just picking that every time. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Food was a big thing. We did a lot of celebrating around meals, which was nice.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Obviously, the apes are a big part of the Uganda experience.
Mm-hmm.
The gorillas, the chimpanzees, but there's even, I think, about 10 other species of primates possible. And we saw a bunch of them. Mangabeys and red-tailed monkeys and black and white colobus and all sorts of stuff. Blue monkeys. And, of course, the olive baboons put on a real show as well. But I'm curious, apart from the primates, what would you say was another big mammal highlight for you? Because we saw a lot of mammals.
Yeah, we really did. When we were talking about favorite days, I couldn't think of a single sort of safari day that stood out to me, but I was not prepared. I didn't realize what number of other animals we would be seeing. I guess, again, just being focused on the gorillas, I didn't realize how much we'd be able to be out and have those sort of safari experiences, which was a big part of our trip. But the first things that come to mind are giraffes and zebras, and we saw zebras especially, right from the beginning. And I was not looking forward to either of those. I don't know. I've been to zoos in my life, and I've seen them. I have seen those mammals before, so I just didn't think that I would be that wowed by them. But I was totally floored by both, and I don't think I'd ever get tired of seeing them. I never got to the point where I thought, oh, another giraffe, I was as amazed every time. But wow, now I'm just thinking through all the other options. We really did see a lot of mammals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I could say there. But how about you?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a couple that stood out for me. We saw so many mammals, and it was, as you say, it was a big part of the trip. And I think that that huge elephant that we saw in Queen Elizabeth National Park, and that it was in such a huge herd of elephants. I mean, we really didn't know what we were getting into at first. We'd just done this magnificent loop around the lake there, and seen pink-backed pelicans and and just all sorts of stuff. But lots of birds and we were kind of heading back to the hotel just to get lunch, and someone said, "Oh, there's some elephants here," and they start crossing the road, and we're just enjoying that. And all of a sudden we realize that they're not just crossing the road ahead of us, they're crossing the road behind us. And that really, all of a sudden, we're just really in the middle of an enormous herd of elephants. We ended up estimating close to 100 animals. I think we estimated over 90, maybe more than that, but at least 90 animals. And finally, the last one kind of bringing up the rear, I think it was Dawn that saw its kind of back and head rising above some of the bushy trees, vegetation, said, "There's Jumbo, the elephant." And then we were all like, "Oh my gosh, like, look at that thing." And it took a while, finally came out, and it was completely unobscured, and you could just see the tusks were pretty much scraping the ground. And it was just this massive dome on its head. It was this big male.
That was amazing.
Yeah, it was just incredible. And of course, we ended up having to get out of there because he started kind of trotting towards the vehicle at a pretty good pace. And I was real glad the bus started.
Yeah, another reason to have a driver who knows what he's doing. Yep. Yeah, it was clearly waiting for all the others to cross before he did. And we'd just learned how to tell male and female elephants apart, so that was cool too. But yeah, we had kind of, like you said, they were coming around us on both sides, and there were like puddles that they were drinking from, or, kind of the young ones were rolling in them and that kind of thing. And it finally crossed, and then there was one more that was still up ahead of our bus, but on the other side. So we kind of ended up in the middle of the two of them, and I figured that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're all just sitting there being quiet too, just kind of watching this happen. So the bus was off and the windows were down. And then I felt like everybody was just kind of like tensing up and holding their breath. And then Herbert said very quietly, "I think we should go now." And then maybe, 5 seconds later, we all just kind of bust out laughing and letting it all out. That was very cool.
It was really intense. It was amazing.
Yeah, that was amazing. Okay, so how about the bats? Does that stand out to you?
Yes, the bats do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was some Wizard of Oz, crazy business there. Never seen anything quite like that. It was nuts.
Yeah, it really was. This was on the road that we had gone into when we were going to Bwindi, and it was sort of kind of close to dark as we were going in, and I don't know, we were just kind of driving along, half asleep, and someone said, I think that tree that we just passed was filled with bats. And that was sort of the end of it. I mean, I didn't see it. And
yeah, I totally dipped on it. I didn't see it at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
First.
So then, a few days later, we were going back out, and they were like, "Yeah, let's look for that tree that had the bats." And oh my gosh, that was
Thousands.
way more than I was expecting.
Oh, it was incredible. Yeah, thousands.
Yeah. Those are the cool things that, I mean, you don't prepare for those moments on the trips, I guess. And because we talked about it the rest of the trip, and you can see bats all over the world. So those were straw-colored fruit bats.
Yeah, that's right.
But an experience like that's hard to come by.
It was breathtaking. It was really, see that. I think we ended up estimating that there was around 10,000 or so. And they were just all around us. That was incredible.
Yeah, it was.
So we've talked a lot about the mammals the last few minutes, Molly. But let me ask you this. What's a bird you haven't stopped thinking about since the trip?
Finfoot.
Ooh, yes.
That's
not where I thought you were
one.
going to go, but
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so excited to see that bird. And it was a bit of a hunt to find one, which was exciting too. And then we ended up seeing 3 while we were on that outing, and they are so cool.
Yeah, those were awesome. That was a big item. And I don't there was no bigger target bird for almost any birding trip. There are all those Albertine Rift endemics that we mentioned. The growers, broadbills. There's like a whole bunch of apalices out there. Regal sunbird. There's this mysterious. We mentioned it actually on the last podcast with Alvaro, the Itombwe nightjar, which is known only from one specimen from 1955, from right on the border there with Congo. It was in Congo. So there's a bunch of like big, targets out there. But when people think of Uganda, they think of the shoebill. And and that was one, it was a bird I was not sure I would ever get to see. And I really, really did want to see that. It's just such a crazy bird. It's hard to sort of sluggish, big, crazy bill, crazy expression. Also, I think the fact that it's in these papyrus swamps, with all the setting is so cool as well. And it's such an iconic bird. I feel like some people would say that's a little bit of a cop-out because it's too obvious to be the bird that sticks with you. But it was one we really wanted to see. And, most people see them now. They've gotten really good. And Herbert and a lot of the folks down there have been instrumental in getting shoebills protected, especially there in the Mabamba Swamp, but even elsewhere too, and building up the ecotourism around that bird, such that they're much easier to find now than they used to be. So I think all of us felt like we really had a great shot to see it, but actually seeing it and getting to kind of commune for it. Also the boat ride out through the swamps there to get to where it was, all the malachite kingfishers, it was definitely partly the journey as much as it was the bird itself.
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah, I mean that's totally a mythical bird. I didn't even think of it when I was thinking through what birds stood out to me, because that's kind of its own category in my head.
Yeah, it's almost not a bird,
Yeah, definitely. And that was also our first stop for the trip. That set the pace for the whole thing. We took off and we were right in it from the beginning. Yeah, it was really cool.
Magical
those
place.
Swamps were cool. Yeah.
So the question that I'm addressing, what's a bird you haven't stopped thinking about since this trip? And my answer for that is kind of a generic one, but it's the weavers. I didn't think I would enjoy that group of birds as much as I did. And to give a little context, The weavers are a group of birds, sort of like our house sparrows, I think, Plosidae, that are very closely related. And they're very diverse in Africa, in the continent in general. But in Uganda, they have an amazing diversity there that just kept us going the whole trip. It seemed like every place we went to, there was a new weaver to see. And the males are really nicely, usually sort of colored with yellow of some sort, with varying amounts of black or chestnut on their plumage. But the females are rather the opposite. They're dull. They're sort of olivey, gray browns, usually streaked on the upper parts, and very similar looking. So I found that to be a really big challenge. And I left the trip still feeling very uncertain about how to identify any of them. But I am looking at my photos and thinking about the notes and that I occasionally took in my head. And I just love that diversity. It's a problem that I don't know if a lot of birders share. Well, I do know a lot of birders don't like to see and try to sort through confusing similar species that, especially when you have other more colorful things to look at, they tend to get pushed to the side. But I really enjoyed that challenge, and I'm looking at photos and looking through the field guide and trying to sort that stuff out in my head. At the same time, having done some field guide work with the guy beside you there, Alvaro, I enjoy that approach of taking difficult species groups and trying to tease them apart. And I think that the field guide that we have, it was probably the best field guide I've ever seen or used, the Birds of East Africa. I still felt that it wasn't the clearest when it came to separating the females, and bouncing around in my head, how would I do this? How would I take on, studying and teasing apart some of the field marks of how to separate these species? So that's a group that's sort of stuck in my mind for that trip. So, yeah.
The weavers were a joy and a lot of fun. They're all over the place. They're pretty much, you see dozens, if not hundreds a day. And, a whole bunch of different species. I think we saw 20 some species of weavers, but they're just so fun. And I really liked the forest weavers we saw. In fact, I think, Mollee, you spotted the red-headed malimbe, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that was, that thing with its crazy kind of nuthatch-like behavior, creeping around, and the fact that it's like a weaver, I just didn't expect that at all. It was one of those things that the behavior combined with the pattern of the bird, the setting that it's in the forest there. I think that's one of the birds that knocked my socks off. And of the birds we saw that day, that one, like, I remember you were like, when you saw it, you were like, what the heck is that thing? And I was like, yeah, like, cause it really had a lot of charisma and attitude.
Totally stands out to me as one of the highlights too. And that's from that second day in Bwendi when we were out, just having a totally magical morning. But yeah, the behaviors, like a nuthatch or more like that. I guess it was staying more vertical. So I guess more woodpecker like, but they're just, maybe now thinking through, it wasn't really staying vertical. They were just kind of climbing all around the trees.
Yeah, they? It reminded me of a white-breasted nuthatch. Like they call them devil downheads, and it was kind of like, it would go up sometimes. It was just like kind of all around. It was just, striking.
Yeah, it was. So another bird that we saw two species, but the Pratincoles were new for me. Yeah. It felt like a cross between some sort of shorebird and a nighthawk or something. They were just hanging out. But especially the rock Pratincoles that we saw at Murchison Falls on these insane falls, and just one of those things where the volume of water was mind-blowing. And seeing those birds out there was really cool.
Yeah, that was a bird all of us really wanted to see, and that at that setting, pretty tough to beat. The magnificent falls, dapper little bird hanging around the falls.
Mm-hmm.
That was tough to beat.
Yeah, that was a really cool bird. And that was our very last stop before we headed back for the expo and that kind of thing too. So that was a really exciting finale to complement the falls there.
Yeah, a nice camper. Really was. Well, Mollee, we got to get back there. I think both of us have some things in the works. We're trying to find our way back there. I think all of us that were there would absolutely love to go back.
Yeah.
And we owe Herbert Byarunga and Birding Uganda Safaris a lot for putting this trip together and managing it so well during a pretty difficult time to try to travel and manage a birding expo as well. It was very skillfully done.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
They're a force to be reckoned with. Herbert is, and just the whole movement that is behind him. They feel very unstoppable, and it's really cool to get a little taste of that while you're there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of youth involved in birding, a lot of women involved, and the government also seems committed to wildlife tourism. So that's a good set of things there for everybody, for them, for visitors, and for the wildlife as well. So
yeah, definitely. So when are you going back?
I was going to say, encourage folks to think about going. I am hoping to go back in late 2023. Hoping to maybe even kind of, put a trip together just before the women's conference there.
So that's separate from the African Birding Expo, but the first ever International Women's Birders Conference will be in December 2023. That's what I have my sights on too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it could be a pretty darn cool event, and frankly, I don't want to miss it. So I think want to try to get together a group to go see some of the stuff we got to see, and also be a part of the women's conference. I think it's a winning formula there.
Yeah, definitely.
Good stuff. Well, we probably ought to wrap with that. But thanks everybody for listening, and keep in touch with us on other things you'd like to hear about regarding travel, regarding Uganda. Me, Mollee, Alvaro, we are all ready to chat about such things. So thanks for listening, everybody. Mollee, have yourself a great day.
You too. See you next time.
Cheers.